considered one of the greatest speeches to ever issue on the page of history. All right. So I'm going to share my version of that, and then I'm going to briefly share about some conditions fostered under a housing first program out on Skid Row by the private nonprofit Skid Row Housing and Trust. That is a stark reminder that although we've come a long way, we got a long way to go.
Yeah, that's right.
I am happy to join with you today in what will go down in history as the greatest demonstration for freedom in the history of our nation. 5 years ago, a great American, in whose symbolic shadow we stand today, signed the Emancipation Proclamation. This momentous decree came as a great beacon light of hope to millions of Negro slaves who had been seared in the flames of war and injustice. It came as a joyous daybreak to end the long night of captivity. But 100 years later, the Negro still is not free.
Amen.
100 years later, the life of the Negro is still sadly crippled by the manacles of segregation and the chains of discrimination. 100 years later, the Negro lives on a lonely island of poverty in the midst of a vast ocean of material prosperity. 100 years later, the Negro is still languished to the corners of American society and finds himself in exile in his own land. So we've come here today to dramatize a shameful condition. I'm not unmindful that some of you have come here out of great trials and tribulations. Some of you have come fresh from narrow jail cells. And some of you have come from areas where your quest for freedom has left you battered by the storms of persecution and staggered by the wounds of freedom. You have been the veterans of creative suffering. Continue to work with the faith that unearned suffering is ridiculous. Go back to Mississippi. Go back to Alabama. Go back to South Carolina. Go back to Georgia. Go back to Louisiana. Go back to the slums and ghettos of our northern cities, knowing that somehow this situation can and will be changed. Let us not wallow in the valley of despair. I say to you today, my friend. And so, even though we face the difficulties of today and tomorrow, I still have a dream.
Amen.
It is a dream deeply rooted in the American dream. I have a dream that one day this nation will rise up and live out the true meaning of its creed. We hold these truths to be self-evident, that all men are created equal. I have a dream that one day, on the red hills of Georgia, the sons of former slaves and the sons of former slave owners will be able to sit down together at the table of bread. I have a dream that one day, even the state of Mississippi, a state sweltering with the heat of injustice, sweltering with the heat of oppression, will be transformed into an oasis of freedom and justice. I have a dream that my 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. I have a dream. I have a dream that one day, down in Alabama, with its vicious racists, with its governor having his lips dripping with the words of interposition and nullification. One day right there in Alabama, little black boys and black girls will be able to join hands with little white boys and white girls as sisters and brothers. I have a dream today. I have a dream that one day every valley shall be exalted. Every hill, mountain shall be made low. The rough places will be made plain, and the crooked places will be made straight. And the glory of the Lord shall be revealed, and all flesh shall see it together. are whole. This is the faith that I go back to the South with. With this faith, we will be able to hew out of the mountain of despair the stone of hope. With this faith, we will be able to transform the jangling discords of our nation into a beautiful symphony of praise. With this faith, we will be able to work together, to pray together, to struggle together, to go to jail together, to stand up for freedom together, knowing that we will be free one day. And this will be the day. This will be the day when all of God's children will be able to sing with new meaning. My country, 'tis of thee. Sweet land of liberty, of thee I sing. Land where my fathers died, land of the pilgrim's pride. From every mountainside, let freedom. And if America is to be a great nation, this must become true. So let freedom reign from the prodigious hilltops of New Hampshire. Let freedom reign from the mighty mountains of New York. Let freedom reign from the heightening Alleghanies of Pennsylvania. Let freedom reign from the snow-capped mountains of Colorado. Let freedom reign from the curvaceous slopes of California. But not only that, let freedom reign from Stone Mountain in Georgia. Let freedom reign from Lookout Mountain in Tennessee. Let freedom reign from every hill and molehill in Mississippi. From every mountain. Let freedom reign. And when this happens, when we allow freedom to reign, when we let it rain from every village and every from every state and every city, we will be able to speed up that day when all of God's children, black men and white men, Jews and Gentiles, Protestants and Catholics, will be able to join hands and sing the words of that old Negro spiritual. Free at last, free at last. Thank God Almighty, we're free at last. We certainly owe a great deal of gratitude to Martin Luther King Jr. and the other civil rights heroes, both known as well as unknown, who gave their blood, sweat, tears, and lives to bring us from the Jim Crow era into another day, another era, another time, where we got a black president. But it is sad to say that today, in 2013, there are still thousands and thousands of people of color who are manacled by the chains of discrimination, segregation, and language in the corners of American society, infamously known as Skid Row. And on Skid Row today, a private nonprofit known as Skid Row Housing and Trust has determined that it is better for the homeless residents and inhabitants of Skid Row to smoke crack cocaine, shoot heroin, pop ecstasy, or abuse any other drug or drink they choose in order to escape the reality of their impoverished conditions while in an apartment, which is, of course, leased by Skid Row Housing Trust, than to do so on the streets. So under a principle called harm reduction, the city of Los Angeles, the state, the federal government, Los Angeles County Housing Authority, U.S. Department of Housing and Urban Development, they pay Skid Row Housing and Trust to bring addicts and alcoholics on the streets of Skid Row and put them in apartments and allow them to do these drugs. You are free to do drugs. You are free to abuse whatever drugs and alcohol you want. You don't have to accept drug treatment. In plain, clear violation of the rental agreement and the federal law under Section 8 and Shelter Plus Care that mandates these facilities have to be drug-free. And these residents have to attend supportive services. So I've been fighting the battle to change these policies to the extent I was, in the beginning of June, I had to leave my apartment complex on stress, and I was away for almost the entire summer. 3 days after I left, one of my neighbors was arrested for homicide and the death of his girlfriend, who he kept in his shower for 2 or 3 days before she could find his discovered. That's how. When I came, I got calls from the apartments telling me what's going on. Some of my neighbors left. Some of them just couldn't take it anymore. So, in me coming back and battling these policies, they have called my housing operators have called the police on me, made false reports attempting to get me arrested. They have made death threats against me. They have written all kind of false allegations report. They treat me, I'm the bad guy because everybody else is okay with this. And so what I am doing now, I'm prepared to launch a legal battle, because I ain't an honest student in the paralegal studies program for nothing. I know how to do law. So I'm going to file a lawsuit against them. But I need people who are willing to stand up and help come and speak out against this. And to say, we won't tolerate this. You don't give us a house and apartment and say, and let our young people and our men and women destroy themselves on drugs, call yourself harm reduction. So if you're interested, and this will be posted on the internet, so I want you to contact me at harmedbyhousingfirst@gmail.com. And afterwards, if anyone you want to talk about it, I can present you with paperwork where they are publishing these policies on their website and their newsletter. They're actually saying, we want to reduce the harmful consequences of human behavior, even if those consequences, the behaviors are risky and illegal, such as drug and alcohol abuse. They are openly publishing it on the internet that we believe we're trying to help them, even though we know they're doing illegal. So we need the people who care to speak out. Because Skid Row doesn't exist like it does for nothing.
Amen.
Thank you very much.